Hey everybody, John Skiba here from the Consumer Warrior YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to do something that I think is actually kind of cool. We're going to use artificial intelligence, AI, to help you put together a plan to deal with your debt problem. But if this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and click subscribe, check on that little bell. That way you'll be notified each and every day when we put out new videos that help you deal with serious debt problems. All right, so a lot of you that have followed the channel and have subscribed, you've seen all my videos, you know that I'm a bankruptcy attorney in the state of Arizona. I also help people who are dealing with debt collection lawsuits and kind of all the horrible things that come with having really difficult debt. But one thing that you may not know is that I also help people get out of debt using non-bankruptcy options. And in fact, I'm certified through Dave Ramsey's financial coaching program. And I've actually even had dinner at Dave Ramsey's house. That's my little bit of name dropping right there. And I really like the way that he deals with debt through non-bankruptcy means. Now, I know that's probably kind of weird that a bankruptcy attorney would also be promoting a Dave Ramsey approach, because if you know Dave Ramsey and you know his program, you know that he is very anti-bankruptcy. But I can tell you this, talking to him, even though he doesn't talk about it a lot, I know that there are certain situations, and I personally believe this, I know there are certain situations where bankruptcy is the way to go and the way to be able to get rid of debt when other ways won't work. But for those of you who are considering non-bankruptcy options, the debt snowball that Dave Ramsey uses in his Financial Peace University and his Total Money Makeover, the book that he wrote about this, is a really effective way to getting rid of debt. It also kind of helps change the way you think about money and you deal with overall debt issues as you're kind of going through this process. So what I want to do today is show you some of the cool tools that are out there, specifically with ChatGPT. We'll talk about Gemini, which is Google's version of his AI process, and how you can use artificial intelligence to put together a game plan to get yourself out of debt. Because I can tell you this, the biggest hurdle for most people is that first step of kind of having a plan in place and being able to start taking action. And, you know, the number one thing, I talk about this all, the number one thing that causes so much stress and anxiety when it comes to debt collectors and debt collection lawsuits and bankruptcy and all that is just fear of the unknown. Once you have a plan in place that you can see step by step, here's what I need to do to implement that plan, you're going to be in a better situation. So what I want to show you today is how to use ChatGPT specifically to put together a plan to deal with credit card debt. Now, the debt snowball, if you're familiar with what that is, it's essentially where you pay off one debt, and then once you pay that off, you take that monthly minimum payment that you were paying on that debt and you add it to the next payment, and it slowly builds up a larger payment. The snowball gets bigger and you're able to pay debt off more quickly. Now, part of this, though, is understanding kind of some of the mechanics of it, some of the math of it, but also just putting it all together. And this is something that artificial intelligence, that AI, and ChatGPT in particular, is really good at, is running these numbers, doing it very quickly, and giving you a product that you can use to then implement this payment plan to get yourself out of debt. So you're going to need a few things before we jump into it. So you're going to need to prepare a little bit. And I'm going to put all this down in the notes so that you can run this just like I am and get a result that's going to be very similar. Okay. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a piece of paper out and you're going to need to write down all of your credit cards. Okay. You need to know what the name of the card is. You're going to need to know a few specific things. You're going to need to know the total amount owed on the credit card as you're preparing it. What's the total amount that you currently owe? So maybe getting the last monthly statement or jumping online and taking a look at that. So you're going to need to know what your monthly minimum payment is. What's the amount that you need to pay each and every month just to cover those interest charges? You're going to see this on a monthly statement. It's going to tell you, here's what you have to pay just to keep this thing current. Probably not going to make any progress, but if you're just making the monthly minimum, you'll at least keep it current and then they don't ding your credit. You're going to need to know the interest rate that you're paying on that card. And let's all the way out. If it's 16.97%, let's get 16.97%. Okay, so you need the name of the credit card. You're going to need the total amount of debt, the monthly minimum payment that you're required to make on that, and then the interest rate on it. Okay, so you're going to get that for each of your credit cards, and you're going to write it down, because I'm going to give you a prompt that you're going to plug into ChatGPT, but you're going to need that information before we can actually plug it in. Then you're going to need to look at your budget, and you're going to have to decide how many dollars, what's the total amount that you can devote to your credit cards. Now, the easiest starting place is to take all of those monthly minimums, add them up, and that's going to be your baseline, okay? So if you have 5 credit cards and it's $200 a month monthly minimum that they're charging, that's going to mean you're going to have at least $1,000 because it's 5 times 2. I'm doing math in real time, and that's always dangerous on YouTube. But that example, just using round numbers, you would have to have at least $1,000 a month to devote to cover those monthly minimums. But then you want to look into your budget and think, okay, and this is where some of those Dave Ramsey principles come into play. Where can I reduce my budget in other areas so I can put more money towards my credit cards? Can I reduce groceries? Can I reduce my subscriptions online? Can I reduce something to increase that? So again, the first, you need all the credit cards with all the information that we talked about, and then you're going to need to know the total monthly amount that you have available to pay towards your credit card debt. And then you're going to want to have a start date as far as when you want to start it. Okay, so I'm going to show you what this looks like. We're going to do this in real time with a prompt. And again, I'm going to put the prompt in the notes below so that you can cut and paste it, plug your information in, and be able to see exactly how this works. So let's jump over to our good friends at ChatGPT. So if you haven't been to ChatGPT before, it's something where you can open up a free account. They also have paid accounts that are pretty economical, but it's chat.openai.com. So you go there, it looks like this, and this down here at the bottom where it says message ChatGPT, this is where you're going to put the prompt in. Now, the prompt is what you're telling, it's kind of like the instructions that you're giving the artificial intelligence of what you want it to do. Now, you're in luck because I've already written all this out. I practiced this, and I'm going to show you how it works. And I'm going to put this prompt down in the notes underneath so you can copy and paste it. So the prompt that I'm going to use is this. This is what we call a persona prompt, where you're going to tell it to act as a certain person or character. In this case, it's Dave Ramsey. So we're going to see here, we're going to say act. We're going to tell the ChatGPT, we're going to say act as Dave Ramsey and applying the principles in his book, The Total Money Makeover. If you're dealing with debt problems and you haven't read The Total Money Makeover, you got to do it. My wife and I remember one time we read it on a trip when we were younger. We had like a 12-hour car ride. We bought it at a gas station. I remember, and we broke it out and we read it as we drove those 12 hours. Go get it. The Total Money Makeover. And then it says, create a debt snowball plan paying off the following debts. Okay. And now I just created some fake debts. So number 1, American Express. I have the total debt amount, $7,456, the monthly minimum payment of $230, and then the interest rate of 3.99%. It's American Express, we wish you get interest rates that low. The second one, Discover Card, the total debt, $3,456. Again, the monthly minimum payment, $213 with the interest rate of 23.75%. Again, I'm just making these up. These are going to be placeholders. So you're going to plug in your credit card, your total amount owed, your monthly minimum payment, and your interest rate. And so for this example, I just used 4 cards, American Express, Discover, Citibank, and then I even threw in one of our friends, the junk debt buyers, Portfolio Recovery Associates, showing the total debt there, $18,234, your monthly minimum payment, $353, with an interest rate of 19.97%. So you're going to take your credit card debt and you're going to plug in your information in the prompt. And so a good way to do this is you could cut and paste the prompt out of the notes below the video, put it into like a Google Doc or a Word doc, and then plug in your information and then cut and paste it into ChatGPT, kind of like I'm doing here. Then below that, it says the total amount of money available each month to cover the monthly minimum payments is $1,300. So let me make sure I explain that. So what I did there is I took, in this example, these 4 credit cards, I took the total, the monthly minimum payment, $230 on the American Express, $213 on the Discover card, $456 on the Citibank, and $353 on the Portfolio Recovery Associates. If you add all those minimum monthly payments together, the total amount is $1,252 a month that you would have to pay to cover just the monthly minimum. So I went through my budget and said, okay, if I get rid of this subscription, if I don't go out to eat as much for a little while, I'm going to increase that up to $1,300. So that means that if $1,252 is the monthly minimum, I found $48 extra in my budget that I could put towards this overall. And so what I did then, so that's where I came up with the $1,300. Then I'm going to give it some instruction that says create a debt snowball repayment plan based on Dave Ramsey's principles with the start date of April 1st, 2024. So I'm putting it out in the future. I'm recording this at the beginning of March. So I'm saying, let's start this next month. And then I gave it the instruction to put that in a table format. So here we are, we're dealing with, we're telling it how we want it to act. We want to do a Dave Ramsey principles, debt snowball. We put in information on our debts, our creditors, all the information, interest rates. We put in how much we feel like we can afford each month. And then we're telling, okay, now let's do a debt snowball repayment plan and put it in a table format. Okay. And then this little black arrow here, you click send the message, and then the artificial intelligence is going to go to work in putting this all together. And you'll see it happens pretty quick. It starts putting through, and we'll go through it. It says Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method focuses on paying off debts from smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate. That is a key way that kind of something that distinguishes Dave Ramsey from other people who do the debt snowball. And then you're going to see it's going to start breaking it down, given our $1,300 a month that we have. And then it's going to state that it's going to start breaking it out by the creditors. And then at the end, it's going to start giving us our actual repayment plan. Okay. So what's kind of cool about this is it doesn't just give you the table. It gives you some other information so you understand exactly what's going on. And as it kind of keeps on going through this, we're going to walk through this in more detail. Okay. So if we come up to the top again, it says Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method focuses on paying off debts from smallest to largest regardless of interest rates while maintaining minimum payments on all of the other debts. This is important because I agree with this. You know, some financial people who talk about the debt snowball, they often will talk about doing debts they'll say just do it from the highest interest rates down to the lowest interest rates because you want to get those high interest rates. The reason why Dave Ramsey says to do the smallest debt to the largest debt is because you need to get some easy wins. You know, if you have a $200 credit card, then that thing's been driving you nuts forever. Let's get that thing out of the way. Let's get some easy wins. You know, it's kind of like when you're trying to get in shape and, you know, if you say, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds, that's tough. But if you say, you know what, let's do 2 pounds and let's get that thing out of the way, you know, we'll make some immediate progress. So I agree with that, to go from the smallest debt, regardless of interest rate, up to the highest. Okay, and then it goes on and it says, given the available $1,300 each month to cover the monthly minimum payments and the details of the debts, here's a plan applying Dave Ramsey's principles starting April 1st, 2024. So it's going to put that into action. The first one, we're going to list the debts from smallest to largest by total amount owed. So the Discover card had the lowest balance, American Express and Citibank, and then Portfolio Recovery. Number 2, it's going to calculate the total minimum monthly payments. So it did exactly what I said. You put those in there, that $230 plus $213 plus $456, so the $1,252. That's how much it costs just each month if you're going to cover those monthly minimums. Then the third step, it says determine the excess payment available after covering all the monthly minimums. Again, I'd say we figured out we're going to squeeze our budget somewhat. We're going to come up with an extra $48 a month. And so that's the $1,300 minus the $1,252. That shows how much extra money we've been able to find in our budget to devote to paying off debt. Then we're going to start the snowball in step 4. It says by applying the excess payment to the smallest debt first while making the minimum payment on the other debts. Okay, so we're going to take that smallest step first. We're making the monthly minimums to everybody, but we're going to add that extra $48 we were able to squeeze out of our budget on top of that. And then step 5, after paying off a debt, we add the amount that we were paying on it to the next smallest debt. So for example, in this one, our Discover card was our lowest debt, and the monthly minimum payment on it was $213. So we're going to take that $213 plus the $48 we got out of our budget, and we're going to add that on to the next smallest, which will be our American Express. So you can see how this is going to really start building some momentum as we start working through it, because you're adding a little more each time. And instead of just the monthly minimum, you're adding a significant amount with each debt that you pay off. Okay, so now the important thing, let's go to the table on this. So then it gives us the table. It says, here's a simplified table format for the debt snowball repayment plan, assuming constant minimum payments and not accounting for interest changes for simplicity. So they're saying we're just going to assume that your interest rates are going to stay the same, which they should if you're able to make those monthly minimum payments. It says in reality, as you pay down, the principal and interest payments will reduce over time, slightly adjusting these figures. Okay, so what's kind of cool about this is you can cut and paste this. Over here in the right hand, you can actually export it. You can just cut and paste this and you can put it into a Word doc, or you can have it exported into a CSV format. So you can put it like into a spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, that kind of thing. So here it is in month number 1, April 2024, your Discover card payment, you're going to make that monthly minimum $213 plus the $48 you squoze out of your budget. So your first monthly payment to Discover is going to be $261. Now, if we look to the next column, American Express, that's the $230 minimum payment that it requires. So you're going to pay that. Same with Citibank and Portfolio. So your notes is that we're focusing on Discover. That's where the gazelle-like intensity he talks about, that Dave Ramsey talks about. You know what's kind of funny about that? When I've been to Dave Ramsey, like I said, I've been to his house, but I've been to his headquarters, and etched into the glass throughout their headquarters are gazelles, because they have this gazelle-like intensity to get out of debt. And so you're going to see it's going to keep going through each month. And then once you pay off the debt, so like down here in the third column from the top, it says after Discover is paid, so we were paying $261 a month to Discover, then you're going to pay the $261. Instead of paying it to Discover, you're going to add it on to the $230 a month that you're paying to American Express. So if you're paying $230 to American Express, plus you add $261, now instead of just paying the minimum $230 payment to American Express, you're paying $491, and you can start to see we're starting to get some momentum here. And it keeps going through this until everything is paid. So then at the bottom, it'll say, note, the table starts in April 2024 and outlines the process. It doesn't specify the exact month each debt will be paid off, because this requires detailed calculations considering the decreasing principal and thus decreasing interest for each payment cycle. Also, actual payments will change as interest impacts the monthly payment needed to stay on track for this snowball plan. To fully implement this plan, detailed monthly tracking and recalculations would be necessary, especially to adjust for reduced interest payments. So it gives you at least a framework of where to start when it comes to adjusting it. And what's kind of cool too is you can do things like, let's say that you cannot squeeze that extra $48 a month out of your budget. So you can only afford the $1,252. You can give it another prompt that says, adjust the table and pay off amount based upon a monthly available income to pay the debts at $1,252. So you can do that, press enter, and you can see it's given us a couple different options here. It's going to ask us which one we prefer. We're going to go with number 1 here to make it a little bit easier, just because we're doing this in real time. But it's going to say, okay, look, and it's going to, if you don't have surplus, it's still going to give us an estimated time frame as far as how you can get this all set up. So hopefully that is helpful to you in at least getting some type of starting point when it comes to dealing with your debt, putting a plan in place, and being able to get this thing under control. Like I said, taking action, whether it's a debt collection lawsuit, whether it's a debt snowball, whatever you're doing, put a plan together. And what's kind of cool is the technology that's out there now, particularly this AI. You can mess around with this and you can fine tune it, and you can interact with the AI in such a way that you can really fine tune what it is you're doing. You can let them know, hey, this is where the struggle is. What areas, you can ask questions like, what areas of my budget should I look to first in trying to reduce expenses so I can put some more money towards debt? Those types of things, you're going to get prompts and you're going to get information that this computer, that this technology is going to help you to finally deal with those debt problems. So check the notes below again for the prompt that we just went over in this chat here. It's going to give you a good starting spot. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who are way more sophisticated at this than I am, but I thought this is a good, at least beginning point to be able to get out of debt, put a plan together, and be able to deal with this thing once and for all. Thanks for watching today. We'll catch you next time.